Son-in-law threatened to frame me for stealing money from his father. He's very cunning and actually got me in a situation I don't know how to escape. Do I just give him what he wants? I never thought I'd be in a position like this. I'm a 58-year-old man, retired early after a career in local government, with a clean reputation, a boring life, and no enemies, no criminal record, no lawsuits. I raised my daughter to be independent, tough, and smart, and she married a man who, on the surface, seemed like a good match. But now I realize I'm dealing with someone far more dangerous than I ever imagined. His name's Jeremy. He married my daughter 5 years ago. At first, he was polite, a little stiff, but respectful. He came from money. His father is a well-known figure in our city, a corporate guy with a dozen properties and a reputation for being tough in business. Jeremy was always kind of slippery though. Too smooth, too careful, always watching, never slipping up. Even when drunk at holidays, he never lost control. That kind of fake calm that makes your skin crawl once you notice it. But what really matters is what happened 2 months ago. That's when Jeremy cornered me after a family dinner and told me, calm as anything, that he was going to frame me for theft. I laughed. I thought he was joking. He wasn't. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "If I don't get what I want, I'll make it look like you embezzled $40,000 from my father's estate. You'll be buried in legal hell. You'll lose everything. All I need is one statement from the accountant, and he owes me a favor." I didn't say a word. I couldn't. It was like my brain froze. What does he want? He wants me to sign over my share of a cabin. Here's the backstory on that. My brother and I inherited a lake cabin from our father. We split it 50-50, and it's been in our family for over 40 years. It's not much, old, needs repairs, but the land is valuable. Jeremy found out I was planning to sell my half and use the money to help my daughter and him put a down payment on a house. But once he realized how much it was actually worth, he changed. He suddenly didn't want help with a down payment. He wanted the whole damn cabin. He told me if I gifted my half to my daughter, his wife, they'd just keep it. A legacy for the grandkids, he said. But I said no. I told him I'd help financially, but the cabin stays in the family the way my dad intended. That was my mistake. That's when he dropped the bomb about the frame job. Now, you might be wondering, how could he even pull something like that off? Well, here's where things get bad. His father died suddenly last year. Stroke. Jeremy was executor of the estate. I had no involvement, but because I used to work in government finance, I offered to look over the documents for my daughter and him, just to make sure they were getting a fair shake. I even emailed back and forth with his father's accountant once. Apparently, Jeremy has printed emails, copies of files, and God knows what else, enough to twist into a story where I used my background to manipulate finances. He claims there's a file showing I reviewed and adjusted a disbursement. That's complete BS, but it's just plausible enough to make noise. I told him straight up that I wasn't scared. I told him to go ahead and try. Then, the investigation started. 2 weeks ago, I got a call from a lawyer representing the father's company. They're conducting a review of all estate transactions and asked to meet. I didn't agree. I told them to speak to my attorney. Then, I got a letter from the IRS. It's not an audit, but a preliminary inquiry. I don't know how the hell he triggered it, but he did. He's pulling strings, and I'm starting to panic. I tried telling my daughter. She didn't believe me. She said I was paranoid and that Jeremy had been stressed from work and feeling unsupported. She thinks I'm being dramatic. She thinks I just don't like him and I'm making this up to push him away. I tried going to my brother. He told me not to get him involved. He said if I'm innocent, then I have nothing to worry about. That's the trap. Because Jeremy isn't trying to prove guilt. He's trying to create noise, ruin my credibility, tie me up in accusations until I'm exhausted and broke. So now I'm sitting here, staring at a draft contract Jeremy sent me, a transfer of deed, my share of the cabin, gone. To keep the peace, he said. He even had the audacity to include a note that said, "No hard feelings, just tying up loose ends." Loose ends? This man is trying to erase me, and he's doing it slowly, methodically, legally. I haven't signed. I'm holding out, but he's good, too good. I haven't seen someone this calculated in real life before. I don't know what to do. Do I fight and risk him pulling more strings, burying me in legal nightmares I can't afford? Or do I just give him the damn cabin and be done with it? If anyone out there's dealt with someone like this, please, how do you fight a man who plays chess 5 moves ahead and smiles while doing it? Update 1. I want to start by saying thank you to the people who commented, messaged, or even just read my first post. I never expected to get this much attention, but some of your replies helped me realize something I hadn't wanted to admit. This isn't just manipulation, it's targeted psychological warfare. Jeremy isn't bluffing, and I was naive enough to think I could handle it alone. This all escalated way faster than I expected. I thought I was playing it smart, staying quiet, holding my ground. But he's been 3 steps ahead the entire time, laying down a path like he knew exactly what I'd do. I made the mistake of trying to gather my own leverage, and that blew up in my face. After that draft contract landed in my inbox, the one he wanted me to sign, handing over my half of the family cabin, I stalled. I sent him a vague reply. I'm reviewing with counsel, expect to hear back next week. Total BS, I don't even have a lawyer on retainer anymore. I was just trying to buy time. I thought, maybe if I dig into him, I can get some dirt. Maybe if I find a weak point, I can turn this thing around. So I started quietly reaching out to some of his old co-workers, people he used to work with at that crypto-adjacent finance startup he was fired from a year ago. Yeah, that part never came up at family dinners. He told my daughter he left to pursue other ventures. Classic. Well, turns out he didn't leave voluntarily. He was fired for coercion and internal conduct violations. No one would go on the record, but 2 different people told me that Jeremy had blackmailed a junior employee to fudge an internal report. Not money, but something about bonuses being misallocated. He pressured this guy into taking the fall so the higher-ups wouldn't ask questions. I asked if anyone had documentation. One guy said maybe. He had an old email chain saved to a hard drive, but it was in storage. That's where I screwed up. I asked him to send me a copy when he found it. Told him I was dealing with something similar. And that guy was still friends with Jeremy's cousin. 3 days later, my phone rings. Unknown number. I pick up. It's Jeremy. His voice was calm, smug, controlled. He says, "Looking into my history, huh? That's not a good look for someone trying to defend their reputation." My stomach dropped. I hadn't told anyone except the 2 people I called. One of them must have tipped him off, or Jeremy's got alerts set up for his name. I don't know. But he knew, and the moment I realized that, it was like the floor vanished under me. Then he says, "Here's what happens now. You're going to stop playing detective. You're going to stop calling people. You're going to sign the cabin over in the next 10 days. If not, I'll make sure your little IRS inquiry turns into something a lot more public." Then he hung up. 10 minutes later, I got an email from someone I didn't recognize. No message, just a subject line. "Thought you'd like to see this." And an attachment. It was a PDF of a fake invoice, billed from a consultancy I never worked for, dated 2 years ago, showing a consulting payment of $18,500, signed with my name and address. The thing looked incredibly real. It even had an EIN number. It looked like it had been submitted for tax purposes. I swear on my life, I've never seen it before. And the worst part, it was tied to Jeremy's father's company. So now I knew exactly what he was doing. He's created fake documentation. He's pieced together this narrative that I stole from his late father's estate, disguised it as a fake invoice, and has it sitting in a folder ready to go. I don't know how long he's been preparing this, maybe since last year, and he knows how to use it. I took the file straight to a lawyer, a real one this time. Retainer paid, appointment scheduled. She looked over everything I had. The emails, the threats, the fake invoice, even a screenshot I grabbed from my call log to prove he called. Her face didn't change much, but I could tell it was serious. She told me something that honestly shattered my confidence. He's not just bluffing. This is someone who's done his homework. He's not trying to win a legal case. He's trying to destroy your ability to fight back before you ever get to court. She asked if I had copies of every interaction with his father's estate. And here's the problem. I don't. I deleted most of them. Why wouldn't I? I had no reason to keep them at the time. I was just being a helpful father-in-law, trying to make sure my daughter and her husband weren't getting fleeced. I had no idea it would come back to bite me. Now Jeremy's counting on that, because he's built a version of events that paints me as some sketchy financial consultant who got greedy, and unless I can disprove it with evidence I no longer have, I'm just the guy denying it while he dumps document after document into the fire. And he's smart enough not to send it all to the IRS or police directly. No, he's leaking it strategically. Last week, a guy I know from city council, someone I used to work with back in my government job, calls me out of the blue. Says he heard something odd from a mutual contact, something about me getting a kickback from a private fund tied to an estate. Then he says, "Off the record, are you in trouble?" That was it. That was my confirmation. Jeremy is poisoning the well, quietly, whispering just enough to ruin me if this ever does go public. And if I try to go public first, he's already got a story ready. I tried talking to my daughter again. This time I showed her the invoice. She didn't say anything for a full minute. Then she asked, "Dad, did you actually do something you're not telling me?" I've never been punched in the gut that hard in my life. My own daughter, not accusing me, not yelling, just asking like she genuinely couldn't tell who was lying. That's how deep Jeremy's gotten into her head. She asked if she could show Jeremy the invoice and see what he says. I begged her not to. She looked scared, confused, like she didn't know what reality to believe anymore. This is the part no one tells you about when someone manipulates your family from the inside. It's not just lies and threats, it's the fog. You start questioning your own memory, your own emails. Did I actually say something that could be twisted? Did I forward that file too casually? Did I ever mention my old job in a way that sounded arrogant? I've lost sleep, I've lost weight, I've thought about just signing the damn cabin over and disappearing from all of it, but my lawyer says we're not done yet. She wants to flip the narrative. She's drafting a cease and desist, warning Jeremy that we're building a harassment and extortion case. She's compiling everything. The voicemail transcript, the fake invoice, even the hearsay from my city council contact. She says we can't accuse him of anything officially, yet, but we can put pressure back on him. The only question is, will it work? Because if it doesn't, I'm screwed. I'm not rich. I don't have a PR team. I don't have an army of legal people like Jeremy's dad used to. I'm just a retired guy with a daughter who's slowly slipping away from me, being pulled into a marriage with someone I now believe is fundamentally dangerous. But I'll say this, I'm not giving him the cabin. Not now. Not ever. I'd rather lose it in court than sign it away like I'm guilty. Update 2. You ever play a hand so risky that even when you win a round, you're still not sure you didn't just lose the whole game? That's what this feels like. If you haven't read the original post and update 1, go back. This won't make sense without it. Quick recap. My son-in-law Jeremy is trying to frame me for stealing money from his late father's estate. He's crafted fake invoices, threatened me, and managed to manipulate my own daughter into doubting me, all over a damn cabin my father left to me and my brother. Jeremy wants me to hand it over or face the consequences. Well, I tried to fight back, and I did. Sort of. Here's what happened. After my lawyer reviewed the fake invoice and all the threats, she recommended we push back with a cease and desist and make it very clear we were documenting everything. We also decided to play a riskier move, make a public statement. No, not to the media. That would have blown everything up too fast. Instead, I wrote a very calm, lawyer-reviewed post on Facebook. It was vague enough to be legally safe, but specific enough that everyone close to us would know who I was talking about. I said I was being harassed by someone I'd trusted with family, that I was being blackmailed with forged documents, that an attempt to seize family property was underway through coercion and manipulation. I never named Jeremy. I didn't even say son-in-law. But everyone knew. I made it public. And I didn't delete it. In under 24 hours, I got a wave of messages. Old coworkers, neighbors, family friends, all saying they had a weird feeling about him, or always thought something was off. A few even shared stories. Nothing criminal, but little things that line up with the pattern. One woman said Jeremy pressured her to invest in a crypto fund he was consulting for a few years ago. When she declined, he ghosted her completely, and they were supposedly close family friends. Another guy said Jeremy tried to convince his wife's cousin to let him borrow her credit score for a real estate flip. He was never charged with anything, but it's clear this guy's been running quiet scams for years, always staying juiced on the right side of illegal. Then came the shocker. One of Jeremy's exes, someone I never met but who's apparently been following the Facebook fallout, messaged me directly. She said she was with him for 2 years before he met my daughter and that he once forged her signature on a loan application. It wasn't huge, just a few thousand, but she didn't report it because it was in her name and she paid it off quietly to avoid ruining her credit. She said it was the biggest mistake of her life and she'd be willing to testify if things go legal. I sent her info to my lawyer, who immediately flagged her as a possible key witness if we go the extortion route. She said her testimony would be damaging even if it's not directly connected, because it shows a pattern of behavior. So I was feeling not confident, but at least like I had a shot. That feeling didn't last long. The next day, I got a visit from my daughter, totally unannounced. She just showed up at my door, eyes red, holding her phone. She'd seen the Facebook post. At first she was quiet, just asked questions, wanted to know if I was really saying all that stuff about Jeremy, wanted to know if I understood what kind of damage it could do to their marriage. And I told her everything, all of it. I showed her the cease and desist letter, the invoice, the voicemail transcript. I didn't hide a thing. She listened, sat silently for most of it, and then she said, "He told me you'd do this, that you'd twist it all and make him the villain. That you were jealous because he's successful and you're just retired." That "just retired" part hit me like a baseball bat to the face. My daughter, the same girl I taught to ride a bike, who I drove to college tours, who I cried when she got married, now looks at me like I'm a bitter, senile man, unraveling in his old age. I begged her to look at the facts. She said facts don't matter when everyone's just fighting to be the victim. Then she dropped the bomb. "He showed me emails. Your name is on the files. You were involved." I asked to see them. She said she couldn't show me because they're confidential. Jeremy told her he was protecting her by not involving her too much. I told her that's how abusers work. They isolate you, then they talk circles around you until you don't know which way is up. She said I was being dramatic. She left 10 minutes later, said she needed space. So now I've got a son-in-law building a legal, digital, and emotional narrative against me, a daughter who's slowly buying into it, a lawyer working overtime to anticipate his next move, and a storm of whispers across our entire social circle about what's really going on. And as much as I hate to admit it, he's winning right now, because even if I beat this legally, even if I expose every lie, Jeremy's poisoned the well so badly I might never fully repair the trust with my own family. My lawyer's putting together a new strategy now. She wants to counterattack with a demand for full disclosure, force Jeremy to either show the alleged documents to a neutral mediator or admit that he has no grounds. But that'll take time, and every day we wait, he's getting bolder. Oh, and get this. I got an email from a reporter, someone on the business beat for our local paper, asked if I'd be open to discussing a family legal dispute that may involve estate mismanagement and a known public figure. I didn't reply. I don't know if Jeremy planted it or if this is just what happens when people gossip too much, but it means this thing's leaking, and when it leaks, people don't care about facts. They care about spectacle. I keep thinking about the last Christmas we all spent at the cabin, fire going, moose tracks in the snow, my daughter curled up on the couch with a book, Jeremy pretending to like board games with the rest of us. I had no idea back then that he'd spend the next year building a bomb under my life. Update 3. I wasn't going to post this yet. I told myself I'd wait until the legal stuff was fully locked down, until I had every document, every recording, every signature. But things moved faster than anyone predicted, and now I'm sitting here, staring at a screen at 3:46 in the morning, hands still shaking, realizing that I won, but maybe not in the way I wanted. If you haven't read my original post and the first 2 updates, this won't make much sense. But here's the nutshell version. My son-in-law Jeremy tried to blackmail me into signing over my share of a family cabin. When I refused, he threatened to frame me for embezzling money from his late father's estate. He created fake documentation, manipulated our social circles, and slowly turned my daughter against me, and he was damn good at it. Better than I expected. Smart, careful, calculated. But now I've got proof. Real, concrete, no squirming out proof. Let me walk you through how we got here, because it wasn't just luck. It was ugly, messy, and the worst part is, I didn't even get it from my own digging. It came from his own wife, my daughter. But I'm getting ahead of myself. After my second update, my lawyer and I went hard on strategy. We launched a pre-litigation mediation request and included demands for Jeremy to submit all evidence he claimed to have: emails, invoices, anything linking me to his father's finances. He ignored the request. Straight up didn't respond. His lawyer replied with a boilerplate, "This matter does not warrant mediation at this time." So, we shifted gears, filed a formal petition demanding preservation of all digital communications relevant to the alleged fraud. Basically, we were setting up for court and making sure Jeremy couldn't destroy evidence later. Around that same time, the woman I mentioned in Update 1, Jeremy's ex who claimed he forged her name on a loan, followed up. She said she found old emails where Jeremy had used similar tactics, fabricating documentation to pressure her into giving up access to her car's title. Not the same situation, but the pattern was identical. We looped her in as a potential witness. My lawyer started drafting an affidavit. Things were finally shifting in our favor, but I still couldn't get through to my daughter. She wouldn't return my calls. She didn't block me, but every message I sent just got left on read. She stopped liking my posts, stopped checking in. My wife, her mother, died 5 years ago, and she's all I have left. Watching her slip away felt worse than anything Jeremy could have done with a spreadsheet. Until last week, she showed up at my house. No warning, just knocked and stood there in tears. She said she'd gone through Jeremy's laptop. Now, before anyone jumps to conclusions, she wasn't snooping. She was trying to access their shared financial spreadsheet for house planning stuff, and the folder she opened had more than she expected. She found a folder labeled Cabin Backup. Inside, dozens of files. Most of them were fake invoices, fake consulting agreements, PDFs with my name digitally inserted into templates. None of them were dated correctly. A few were marked V1, V2, Final for PDF, etc., like a freaking workshop of forged documents. Worse, there was a Word doc with a full timeline of how he'd set me up. I've seen it. It reads like something out of a sociopath's playbook. He detailed every step, from befriending the accountant who handled his father's estate, to the date he asked his tech guy to spoof an email that looked like it came from me, all the way to the day he planned to trigger the IRS alert to create preemptive stress. There were even notes like, if he caves before May, push the family unity angle. If he resists, drop hint about city council rumors. Daughter likely to believe me over him, keep framing it as protecting her from stress. Cabin angle is best leverage, emotional plus legal tie. Erste was, sick. My daughter said she copied the folder onto a USB before he got home and hid it. She wasn't even sure why. She said she felt off about everything lately. His mood, the way he brushed her off whenever she brought up reconciliation with me, the way he controlled conversations. And when she found the folder, something just snapped. She handed me the USB that same night. I cried. Not just out of relief, but because it was the first time since this hell started that I felt like I had my daughter back. We took the drive straight to my lawyer the next morning. She damn near jumped out of her chair when she read the files. She said we now had grounds for both civil and criminal proceedings. Forgery, attempted fraud, coercion, and potentially obstruction if we can tie in the IRS letter Jeremy triggered using falsified information. But here's where it gets complicated. My daughter is still married to him. She's not defending him. Far from it. She was devastated. She kept saying, I can't believe I didn't see it. I can't believe I defended him. She blamed herself. But she's also scared. He has access to everything. Their finances, her messages, even her therapist's info. She said he has this way of keeping her in a fog where she second guesses every move she makes. She asked me, what do I do now? And I didn't have a good answer. Legally, she's clear. She didn't help forge anything. She wasn't complicit. Emotionally, that's another story. This man manipulated her own father into nearly signing over a lifetime of family history. Who knows what else he's been doing in that marriage behind closed doors. She stayed at my house that night, said she couldn't go back home. She wanted time, space. I gave her everything I could, but deep down, I knew Jeremy wouldn't let go so easily. I was right. 2 days ago, he showed up. Middle of the afternoon, I was in the garage when I heard tires on the gravel. I stepped out and saw him standing by his car, arms crossed, sunglasses on like he was starring in a low-budget crime drama. He didn't walk up. He just said loud enough for me to hear, "You think this ends with a flash drive?" I didn't answer. He smiled, that same cold, confident smirk I've hated since the first time I saw it at Thanksgiving. Then he got in the car and drove off. That was it. But I caught it on my security camera, audio and everything. We're adding it to the report, between the files, the recordings, the threats, and my daughter's first-hand statements. We now have a complete package. My lawyer's drafting a civil suit that'll land next week, and we've already contacted a prosecutor's office about possible criminal charges. They're reviewing the material as I type this. It's not a matter of if anymore. It's a matter of how hard he falls. But here's what's killing me, even now. My daughter still loves him. Or loved him. She's not going back. Not defending him anymore. But the damage he did? It's deep. I see it in her face every time she looks at that cabin paperwork, or reads his old messages to her like they were written by someone else entirely. She said something tonight that broke me. I don't even know who I married, and I don't know how I'll ever trust myself again. That's what he stole. Not just time, not just legal fees, not just my reputation. He stole her faith in herself. I'll win this case. I know I will. The truth is too loud now. But the man ripped through our family like a blade, and there's no clean way to stitch that up. There's no closure when the person who hurt you wore your trust like a disguise for years. So yeah, I caught him. The mask is off, and it's about to get real. But I don't feel victorious. I feel like a man who survived a house fire, standing in the ashes with the one thing he managed to save, wondering if anything will ever feel like home again. I'll post one last update after the court filings go through. And to anyone out there dealing with someone like Jeremy, someone who's slick, smart, smiling while they destroy you, don't wait to collect proof. Start documenting everything. Yesterday, final update, this is the last time I'll be posting about this. For the people who followed since the beginning, thank you, truly. You helped me keep my sanity when it felt like the ground under my feet wasn't real anymore. If you haven't read the rest, the short version is this. My son-in-law, Jeremy, tried to blackmail me into giving him my share of a family cabin. When I refused, he set up an entire scheme to make it look like I embezzled money from his dead father's estate. Fake invoices, forged emails, and calculated manipulation. He turned my daughter against me, nearly destroyed my reputation, and made me question every instinct I ever had as a father. The civil lawsuit was filed, and criminal charges followed close behind. The flash drive my daughter found, filled with documents Jeremy created to set me up, was everything we needed. It wasn't just proof of his attempt to frame me. It was evidence of a pattern, a career of coercion, manipulation, fraud. Turns out, we weren't the only ones. Once our case started to circulate, quietly, through legal channels, 2 other people came forward. One was a former business partner from Jeremy's crypto days. The guy had been threatened into silence after Jeremy falsified earnings reports to woo investors. The second was the accountant who handled Jeremy's father's estate, the same one Jeremy said owed him a favor. Turns out that favor was a lie. When my lawyer contacted him directly, not through Jeremy, not through second-hand requests, he agreed to sit for a statement, said he'd been feeling sick about it for months. Jeremy had asked him to reword a few documents, hinting it was to clean up the files for his dad's records. The accountant didn't know what it was really for. Once he realized, he wanted nothing to do with it. He gave us everything, timestamps, original versions, emails, all of it matched the metadata on the fakes Jeremy tried to use against me. We had forensic analysis done on the documents from the flash drive. The forensics team confirmed it. They were forged by Jeremy. With all of that compiled, the prosecutors had more than enough to file criminal charges, forgery, fraud, attempted coercion, possibly wire fraud, depending on how some of the digital files were transmitted. The legal process isn't fast, but it's moving. Jeremy has been formally charged and had to post bail. His passport was confiscated. The day they took him in, I didn't cheer, I didn't smile. I just sat in my car in the courthouse parking lot and cried. Because I won. But I didn't feel like I won. Let me explain why. My daughter filed for divorce. She filed 2 days after Jeremy was arraigned. She stayed at my place for a few weeks while she got things in order. She was shattered, not just emotionally, but mentally, spiritually. She told me she felt like a ghost in her own life, like she'd been walking through a script someone else had written for her and only just realized it. She apologized over and over for not believing me sooner, for calling me paranoid, for saying things she didn't mean when she was scared and confused and being gaslit by a man who wore control like a second skin. I told her she didn't owe me an apology, but deep down, there's still this little scar. It's not from her. It's from the way Jeremy used her as a weapon, the way he turned my own daughter into a mirror that reflected back all the worst things I feared about myself. That kind of damage doesn't just heal with court papers. You know what else doesn't heal fast? The neighborhood whispers. Even though the charges are public record now, and the local news quietly ran a story under the business crime section, people are still cautious around me. I got invited to fewer neighborhood events. A couple of my old friends from city council stopped returning my calls. One even told me, "You know how people are. They remember the mess, not the cleanup." I've become the guy whose son-in-law tried to ruin him. That's my label now, and I'm learning to live with it. But I'll say this, I'm not hiding. I kept the cabin. That was one of the first things my daughter said when the lawsuit ended. "Please don't sell it, Dad." "Not yet." So I didn't. I cleaned it up, repaired the busted window from last winter, replaced the warped boards on the dock, spent a whole weekend there alone, sitting in the silence, remembering the version of my life before all this happened. And you know what? It still feels like home, even after everything. Even with the memories stained by this past year, the cabin still feels like a place that belongs to me, to us. My daughter visited last week. She brought a box of old photo albums. We sat on the porch and went through them. Birthdays, fishing trips, Christmases with my wife before she passed. Jeremy was in some of them, of course, but we didn't dwell on that. We focused on the ones where it was just us. She stayed the night. The next morning, over coffee, she told me she was thinking about moving out of state, not to run away, but to reset, start clean. I told her I'd support her no matter what, that she deserves to build a life that isn't haunted by what he did. She cried again. I did too. We didn't fix everything in one visit, but we're healing, slowly. As for Jeremy, his court date is still pending. His lawyer's already pushing for a plea deal, probably hoping to avoid jail time. I don't care if he does time or not, honestly. I care about the paper trail, the proof, the public record that says, yes, he did this. I want it in ink. I want it searchable. I want it to follow him like a shadow for the rest of his life. Because that's what he did to me. He didn't just try to steal a piece of property. He tried to erase my name, my trust, my place in my own family. And that's the kind of violence people don't talk about enough. The kind that doesn't leave bruises, but leaves you walking through your house, wondering if you'll ever feel safe in it again. But I do now. Finally. So yeah, that's the end of this saga. I have no plans to post any more updates unless something drastic happens. And honestly, I hope it doesn't. I want to be boring again. I want to be a man who fixes the roof at the cabin on Sundays and calls his daughter just to hear about her new job. Thanks for everything.